what's on your agenda tonight?
One thing I'd love to do is to get I11 accepted by QA. So I'm assuming that these calls, the last call we had with R10, and then we're doing our I11. These are essentially QA assessments. So a QA assessment of I11, which I've fully updated with the feedback from QA from our previous call. So and if we've got a bit of time, we can go through some of the issues, but that's less important.
Okay, from my side, I would like to go through a new way that I have of describing the functionality of interblock with the goal of writing a request for interblock that also encapsulates the Dreamcatcher. That's it. That's the.
Okay, all right. Right, let's go for it then.
So what do you want to do? The I11?
Yep. Have you we can do this one of two ways. So the previous Google Doc I left as it was, and the current in
Oh,
GitHub
yeah.
is my edits. We can put it into Google Doc, a separate one, in order to work on it if there's major edits to be done.
Oh, sorry. Wait, what? So you've been editing that Google Doc?
No, the opposite. The Google Doc is as we left it.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah,
And the edits are on.
are all in Git. Yeah.
There's. Uh, I have a lot of changes I think need to happen there, so I'm not sure we'll be able to get through a version tonight.
Okay.
We'll see how we go. Why don't I just, if it's okay. Oh, actually, I guess the Google Doc helps with being able to highlight a section, right? Tablet and a phone. So
Do you want me just to copy everything? We'll get rid of the previous version, then copy this
yeah,
new version.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right, let me do that.
yeah.
2 seconds. Okay. That's it. That's it done.
Where is that file?
Let me send you a link. It's your file, man. You should know where the file is.
Hey, I know it was in my file. What's it even called?
It's currently I11 Request-Idea. Request-Idea.
Request hyphen.
Yeah, I'll send you over our link.
No, I got it. I got it.
You got it?
I got
You
it.
got it? Okay, that's fine.
Easy now. Okay.
It's screwed up the formatting a bit because doesn't play nice.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
In general, you and I disagree on what open, locked, and finalized mean.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
This was the disagreement we had when I first put up the market.md doc, and it's the same discrepancy.
You give we don't have good definitions, which is probably what the problem is here. So can you define what you mean by each of those three then?
A request that's in a pool and is open means that it's open for ideas to be proposed, assets to be proposed, money to be pooled upon it. So it's open for negotiation.
What's the QA status of that then? Of something that's in open?
The fact that it's in the pool said that QA affirms that its format matches what the pool has determined is the acceptable formats. It makes logical sense. it is a request that can be fulfilled in QA's eyes.
Right. So it's past the first stage of QA. QA have agreed that this is well formatted and have said nothing else.
What are the stages of QA?
I've put those down in a state diagram, or not diagram. Here. Inside the doc, I go through.
You mean the actors and actions where you're QA? And you keep breaking up, and I'm pretty sure that's not me.
Yeah, it's almost certainly me. Because this is what happened last time. I think it's because I've got too many.
What happened last time?
It's
your laptop was
my laptop.
Your laptop. I couldn't do OBS as well at the same time.
Yeah, give me a sec. I'm just going to close as many tabs as we can possibly do. This is what happened last time. I should do that as just an SOP at the start of these calls. Oh, it's really. I think OBS is quite hungry.
It's heavy, man. It's real heavy.
Yeah.
Have you got the latest version? Because there was an update recently.
I don't know, but I'll check after this.
I think about 2 weeks ago there was an update. Right. And second of all, the biggest performance gain I noticed in OBS is selecting the different type of window capture. I'm not sure what it is in Mac, but there's two forms you can choose in Windows. One is the really slow one, and the other one is pretty much no load at all.
All right. Okay. Interesting.
So under window capture, yeah.
Inside of Mac, you've got capture the application window or the display screen.
You may find it works better if you just capture an application window as well.
What that prevents though is when we're talking about a document, I'm swiping across to get the document up there, so it makes more sense for anyone watching this.
Yeah, I know that's polite. I'm sure they would appreciate uninterrupted audio more than viewing a document that they probably can't read anyway.
Yeah. All right, I'm slowly getting through closing all these tabs. Let's see if this makes a difference. There's my sextant porn for everyone to see. Yeah, I think I'm going to do a SOP where I just close everything down before doing it, because that's twice in a row. Right. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Seems perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm actually, while talking about this, I'm going to switch to Git because it renders MD as opposed to bastardizing it. Okay, so by states, if you, this is all in concepts. So we're talking about the definitions of open, locked, and finalized. I think I know where the discrepancy is. The market MD, I was thinking as the totality of all request ideas, and so open was something that hasn't gone through that QA transition.
No, the pool only QA passed items make it into the pool at all.
Yeah, it was. I think where I went wrong is because it's called market. I was thinking this is the whole market, the totality of the market, but it's not. But that's fine.
It is. It is though. It is the totality of the market for that pool. To participate in the pool, that's the only options you have.
That's correct. No, I was thinking about the totality of everything, including gash ideas that have just got one line, which nevertheless, we can get people.
No, I guess that's the difference. When I think of pool, I think of high quality, vetted um, serious ideas, not.
Can I suggest then? Actually, this is a really minor thing. So what threw me there is calling it market. For me, the market is the open market. What you're talking about there is the pool, but we're calling it the market. So as opposed to market, maybe call it DC pool or something. That would make it clearer for me, certainly. Or maybe the next guy coming along. But that's a minor point. You're talking about
I could just call it. I could just call it list.
Yeah, that would do. That would do. Because
I'd originally called it pool.md, and the reason why I changed it is because it looked funny to have a folder called pool and then a file called pool.
All right. Yeah.
Maybe that's not so funny. Maybe I can just change that to pool.
Yeah. I think that's what threw me. Because it does make sense that. Sorry.
If you want to correct that rename, and if that would settle that issue.
Yeah, I would do that. That's fine.
Okay. So and the idea for dust is that all the dust goes in the NFAs folder.
Yes, precisely. And
it's really just to get yourself an ID at that stage.
Yeah, exactly. But having that presented on that, the page previously called market would be a good thing, because then you do see the stuff that's not being QA'd. But I'll not go through line by line, but there's states and state changes. Now, the terminology is incorrect now, but if you can imagine where it was with it. So essentially, it's you have a request or an idea which has not gone through any QA. That's the state. The state change is then there's a QA process which moves that into the pool. At which point the pool has its well, actually, no, there's a better way of talking about this. I raised an issue or a suggestion about how to think about what the pool's doing, and the pool really is one of these quality assurance pieces.
Like it's acting like a standards body.
Right. Yeah.
I don't agree with that, but I think there's definitely a hierarchy, and there'd definitely be guilds, but my belief and understanding of a standards body is that they exist because it's hard to, or was hard to, automate the auditing of every QA person's activities in a particular area. Whereas for us, every time any QA actor does anything, it's recorded forever and we can grab it.
Okay, I disagree with that on the following point. I don't think it's about the lack of automation. I think it was more to do with standardization. So if take the CE mark in Europe, the actual rules behind that are entirely different for a phone or a rebreather because they're different bits of kit. But the fact is there's been a certain process that they've gone through, and there's been a person, a QA guy, who's actually looked at this and said, yes, that's fit to be sold as a product in Europe. So it's not so much about the automation of it, it's to do with the standardization.
It's more about scale.
Yeah. Say again, sorry?
Yeah, it's more about scale than...
Right, yeah. It's a shorthand. If you see a CE mark on it, you know, some dude somewhere has looked at this.
I don't expect that we're going to be able to form a central body because we don't have control. There will be like guilds form where there's groups of people, and there will be popular groups that sort of get together. There will definitely be hierarchies of QA, like QA for QAs, and being part of a group of QA members so that you have an income stream and you can handle the volume.
It's not centralized though. Maybe I've not explained it well in the issue. So a pool puts up their template and saying for this first transition, if you're going to be considered for the pool, you need to be in this format, and the QA guy needs to look through it and say, yeah, that's good. That's a standard. That standard applies to that pool. So they advertise the standards saying we accept these templates, and there can be multiple, as we're saying, one of the issues. But they advertise what our standard is. And if you want to be in our pool, if you want to play with our ball, you need to be in that standard. But that doesn't stop any other pool having a completely different standard. So it's not centralized. It's per pool. So it's not global. But what it does is it's a shorthand. So if you're in a pool at the open stage as you're defined it there, then you know that if you wanted to, you could drill down and look at, okay, so what's their template, what's the guidelines, and who's the QA, and this has now passed that. But most people will just, as you do, look at the CE mark or the British Standard Institute mark and say, yeah, okay, I understand what to expect from that one. So that's what it's meaning by the standards. But the important...
Yeah, but what do you want to do about what are you saying needs to change in our system for that?
No, it's just it's a conceptual way of looking at it, because the different part was when someone turns up and wants to put money on escrow against that, because that's not standard. That could be down to, they could be drunk or high on coke for all we know, and they put money into escrow, and that's an entirely different piece. So remember 2 calls ago, we were talking about what that QA thing was about, the qualitative value of escrowing on a piece of work. That's entirely down to the user, but the QA inside of a pool is a standard. Does that make sense? It's a conceptual framework.
I mean, I get it, but I don't get why we need to be dealing with that now. Like that's a thing that happens if we get users and numbers up.
Right. But it's just a conceptual way of thinking about it, because the states that
I don't need to agree with your conceptual way of thinking about it. If that works for you,
okay. Well,
great.
It was more to check in to see whether I was well off the mark, and by the sounds of it,
I think I can see how you're approaching it. That is not how I don't relate to those agencies very well. That doesn't mean that it's a wrong way to think about it.
Okay, all right.
I just think I don't like standards bodies because they often, my dealings with them gave me the impression that they were corrupt, slovenly, out of date, and overpriced.
I think when you're talking about globalized standards, yes. Essentially we're talking about localized.
I'm like, I don't want anything like that. I want the opposite of that. I want, so, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. No,
yes, it is a standard. It is a standard that we're trying to push, but it's more algorithmic and more competitive. Like, I hope that there's significant competition to be QA, and that QA also henpicks other QAs, so that there's a reputation at stake, and there's an income stream that makes you pull your socks up and keep nose clean about it, right?
Yeah,
and
I agree.
You better be good, and you better stay good, or you're going to lose your job. Whereas I've honestly never met anybody who seemed so secure in their job as a standards certified operator.
Right. Okay, I get where you're coming from now. So there's this is heavily weighted on, how shit, and I agree. Security auditors, the one thing you can be guaranteed after being audited by a security guy is that you're not secure, because it's they've got a very thick book that they go through. I've done many ISO 27001 audits, and you come away with fucking hell. They didn't.
Yeah, they're just not lively, and they don't. I mean, for us, we're trying to share upside.
Yeah.
So QA needs to be like, hey man, like a good QA won't get paid until the job actually got done by someone else and they passed it, and they will get upside from its reuse.
Yeah.
So as opposed to these other things, guys that are like flat fucking rate.
I'll think of another analogy then, but I was taking it more from the fundamentals of a pool advertises a standard, and QAs review against that standard, and if it passes, you get a badge, and that badge acts as a filter.
Please correct me if I've made an erroneous assumption.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make this assumption because it might save us time if I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
My assumption, which I do not stand by, is that the way you're looking at our exercise now for the markdown model, as well as the way you're looking at our exercise for the software model, is to be a setter of standards.
No.
Is that right? It's not right. It's not 100% wrong.
It's not 100% wrong. No.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just haven't finished. Okay. Not our job.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to do, just to caveat that, the reason I'm saying it's not 100% wrong, is I think our job at the moment is to, as QA for the DC pool, the very first pool and only pool at the moment. Later on, there'll be many others, and they can do this themselves. Our job is to say what we need to see in order to accept Request-Idea into the pool. And right now,
this pool,
yeah, just this pool, nothing else. And what that amounts to at the moment really is a template and a bit of guidance. That's it.
And a lot of fuck ups.
Yeah.
The purpose of what I see our software based job, which comes after this one, is to provide some framework by which you could easily develop your own pool with your own rules, whereby we have sufficiently extracted the portions of the operation of any pool that cannot be non-existent, not because we said so, but because through experience we deduced that a pool must do at least these things if it has any kind of hope of doing anything useful. And then we provide the configuration options that we chose, that we found useful, and we make those configuration options as open as possible for anyone else to try their own formulas out for their own pool. Right. That's what I think our job is.
I agree.
From that, I pray that standards will emerge and culture will emerge, and it will be very formal, very competitive, very fast, and it will be hierarchical, and that there'll be QA for QA for QA, and there will be some people that are considered QA angels and others who are just getting started in the game. And the market will decide how much each gets to charge as a cut and how much work each one gets. And at any point in time, their reputation's on the line and could go to zero if they fuck something up. I also imagine that we will see pools form around QAs, where it's like paying for QAs to do their work in exchange for the attribution that the QA earns. Paying for having insurance on your side so that when you offer to do a job, someone can take it with the algorithmic certainty that if QA has done a poor job and you suffer because of it, you'll receive some kind of payout from the pool that has been built up to cover such failures. Yeah. That's what I think will emerge, and that's not we kickstart it, but we provide the framework and others configure and experiment.
Perfect. That's everything you just said is exactly what's in my head. If I was to just to reflect back to make sure that I haven't said something that's bollocks. If you look at the absolute minimum, kind of reductio ad absurdum kind of thing, we're stating that a pool has some process where a QA is deciding whether something should be in the pool.
So it's got some minimum standard.
Right. And then when the work's done, it's got something that decides whether the output is done. And the reason that is there, so it triggers the escrow. And the reductio ad absurdum is, let's say if someone wanted to put in their QA standard, and it's a standard for that pool, for a coin flip. It's like you put something you apply to the pool, flip a coin, heads, yeah, you're in. You do the work, you've got the output, you apply it to QA, flip a coin, tail, no, go around the boy, flip the coin again, heads, yes, it's signed off. So that's like the minimum thing. So the standard is actually the coin flip algo there. But what we're doing is saying that there needs to be some kind of stage gate, those two stage gates where you're dust, then you're inside of a pool, you do work, you've got outputs, and there's some other standard that if there's escrow against it, releases the escrow. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a coin flip, could be a I told you so algo.
Yep. And we're relying on the fact that individuals spending money do not want it to go down in value, whatever they spend it on.
Yeah.
And the mechanism or the purpose of the mechanism of a pool is to go from dust to something worth more.
Right.
That's it. And we're saying that it's done by the collaboration of strangers in the absence of security class promises. And if you want that type of mechanism, here is a base framework that you can't escape from that we will supply for you. And there's all these configuration options that you can add. If there's something we didn't think of in terms of framework, then pull requests and we'll add it in, because we want to support every possible class of mechanism that does that by configuration.
Yes, precisely. So the albeit our definitions are kind of chunked down by one definition. So I was defining open as effectively dust.
Yeah.
But we chunk it down. The actual process, I think, is still worth seeing whether you agree with. So to go through the process, it's you're outside of the pool. That's one state. So your state is you're outside of any pool, or you're outside of this pool. We specifically outside of this pool, doesn't matter if you're in any other pool. There is a QA process which decides whether you're inside.
Yeah.
So now you're inside, so that's another state, and that's available to be escrowed and so on. Now, I'll come to a question in 30 seconds, but not yet. There's another state, the work's done, and that state change is work's done, but nobody's checked, to work's done, and it's been through some kind of process to check. So you're outside, and you're in, and you haven't done any work yet. Then you're in, and you say you're finished your work, and so there's then a check between those two.
Yeah, there's a missing stage where you're in, and someone has agreed to fund your proposed work that you detailed in your idea, and that's when you're escrowed.
Right. Now that's the interesting one, because that is not. I'll not say the word standard again. That's not a. That's not the same. It's not the QA step. That is an investment judgment by an individual whose cash it is.
Correct. Yeah, correct. 100% correct.
Yeah. So maybe they're also tossing a coin if they're complete fucking idiots. Going back through heads, I'll escrow you. Tails, I won't. That's up to them.
What's funny is that maybe once it's past QA, it may be hard to distinguish the coin flip from skill in terms of performance.
Well, yeah. Take the stock market.
Yeah, right. Like apparently, like index funds outperform I don't know how true that is. I've never looked at
it's true. I've looked into that briefly because Vanguard are doing exceptionally well by doing nothing but following a bunch of algorithmic rules and no judgment whatsoever.
Well,
and they're outperforming. These guys sitting there saying, "I've got the magic sauce."
That makes me mad. That makes me mad because I know that intelligence can do better than that.
Yeah.
But if there's so much noise that you can't pick the signal of intelligence amongst it all, then sure.
Yeah, why not hand over to not even an AI? Why not hand over to an algo?
Yeah.
Right. So, Henry, inside the concept, those were the state changes. So, I agree actually that escrow step, but it's fundamentally different from the QA because it's a judgment call.
QA, you are correct. Yep, you are correct.
Yeah. So in the concept, I rewrote this as and I didn't do a diagram. I will do a diagram as a state chart, because I think that state chart kind of gets around a lot of the problems that we were having with the other one, the last version, which was basically aping the request. So now we're saying, well, actually,
yeah, it's much more. It's much more. There's more novelty here.
Yeah.
Than yeah.
Exactly. So again,
there's another error that I see, or discrepancy from what I understand our purpose to be, which is in terms of I don't know if you can see my cursor.
I'm not actually
I'm on the
doc.
part that says, as we don't have a clear idea yet of how much effort in terms of real money, we will use POMOs as a virtual currency.
Yep. Yeah, that was a straight idea. That was a in the way we're trying to. It's my punt on it.
I don't agree with that at all, because the purpose of recording the POMOs against each item is so that we keep track of how much effort has been expended, which is independent of the amount of money that's pooled or escrowed or paid out on that item.
Yes. And now, just to be clear, now this session up to this point has been a QA, a kind of meta QA on this document, but now we're in the position of writing
it's been multiple hats.
Say again, sorry?
It's been multiple hats. Sometimes we are acting as the workers who are putting forwards the idea and the request. Sometimes we are acting as the QA.
Right.
It's all a bit of an incestuous tangle at the moment.
Yeah.
But we're hopefully going to break out of that soon. How many hats do you have, like physical hat? Because we could get like a series of different colored hats and then actually do that.
Let's see then. All right, okay. All right. So I've got my beanie on. Well beloved of workers in the UK. So this was a straight punt, as the two of us are writing this, the content of this, and this is a straight.
I don't think that it's that's bad, because Pomodoros don't. If you were to use units of time as the unit of speculation in the pool, you would have completely sidestepped the overall problem, which is the conversion of money to labor to asset.
I agree.
You would have gone straight from labor to asset.
I agree, but the reason I wrote this is because I couldn't think of how to make that link to the end thing, because
we just assign each other a US dollar balance that's virtual, and then we choose which things we want to put it against.
But how's that dollar balance paid for, except for our time? So
what do you mean paid for?
Well, as in
it's
paid out. Sorry.
When the work is completed, the people who did the work receive the money. That's an escrow.
Yes. However. Okay, right. You talk me through what you put in this paragraph. That's probably a better way of doing it. So,
okay, great.
Yeah.
So I would say that we would record our effort in using Pomodoros as the unit of labor, and then we would allocate ourselves some virtual US dollars. And you and I would act as investors and would be free to put our currency anywhere we chose. Probably we can just issue ourselves some more every month, or just see how we go. But that perfectly exercises the currency aspect for me.
So that actually, interesting enough, that was the version that I had in the previous I11. But the problem I had with that was what we're saying is record POMOs, and then we'll pay off POMOs with virtual US dollars.
We're not paying POMOs. It's not dollars for POMOs. Pomos are what effort went into it.
Yeah.
The escrowed funds are for the completed asset, not for the pomos. Because this is something that I am not sure about, but I got a strong sense that this is how the system needs to operate, in that we don't do the translation to attribution. We simply record contribution. So let's say you burned 450 pomos, and we had escrowed between the two of us, Rockstar investors, we had escrowed the princely sum of $1,500 US.
Yeah.
At the end of it, you would get that money if you delivered, and that's it. We don't say what the attribution split is. If you burned like 5,000 pomos and got $20, obviously the guy who put in the $20, he ain't gonna end up with that much attribution. But it's not for us to say, because we don't know what the thing's worth.
Okay, here's and we're going back 6 months maybe on this conversation, but we haven't talked about it for a while. So here's a thought. So there's the worker and the funder, and essentially the funder, by escrowing money, is buying the future attribution that otherwise the worker would have 100% of. So say if there's no funding, the worker just turns up, does it, he owns 100% of the attribution. And the funder is effectively buying a portion of that. Now that portion, the delta on it, it could be that a funder turns up and pays you $1,000 a day, and puts out what you say it's going to take 60 days. He goes, I've got $60,000. That's fine. I'll put that in escrow, and you get it at the end. That's fine. Then all of the attribution is that guy's. If the
we're not currently allowing you to negotiate away your attribution rights. That's not up to the negotiation that happens here.
No, but that's part of what we're aiming at. Okay, so we don't need to do this at the moment, but that is what the head mark is, right?
That's not what we're aiming for. In fact, we're actually aiming to never allow people to negotiate away their attribution. We're simply recording the contribution, and then as a whole, across the board, we apply an algorithm that calculates what that split is. If you leave it up to the individuals, it will come out unfair, guaranteed.
Yes, but the variable is the amount of the dispersal event that actually generates some kind of income for the work done. That goes into the attribution table, which can be regenerated and so on. A funder is effectively, by putting money in, that's in lieu of their skilled work, even whether or not they can do skill, they've got dollars. So they're on the attribution table. The worker also has...
No, they're on the contribution table.
Sorry, contribution table, and therefore when it generate the attribution, they get a part of the attribution. Similarly, the worker puts in contribution and gets a portion on the attribution table when a dispersal event comes in. Now, there's an exchange of funds, because not everyone can work for free for 6 months to build something and then wait for revenue to come in.
Once the guy delivers the work, then he gets paid the money.
Right. But
what
that is that's an exchange of attribution. So say if someone...
not necessarily. I mean, technically, yes, it is, but I say no because it sounds like what you're saying is that it's up to each party to negotiate what the exchange is. And I'm saying no, the system as a whole decides that.
It's not down to each individual. It's so this is what we're talking about here is the algorithmic cap table, right? So
and one of our principles of fairness, which we are openly saying we don't know all there is to know about fairness. But one thing we do know is that if you leave it up to each interested party, you're guaranteed to get an unfair result. What we do know is that if you take an algorithm and apply it across many different uses and instances of the money for labor exchange happening in the same industry or area or type of good produced for labor, you will get a general fairer situation than you would if you left it up to each individual.
Right. And now here's the nub of this paragraph, which is why, and quite rightly you pulled it out. I was out of ideas on this, on exactly, now we're getting to the wick of it. How's this done? So you've got an algorithmic cap table. You've got a funder putting in money in lieu of time, and you've got a worker putting time in lieu of money. And there is an exchange. So you could just keep the money in that pool and not pay anyone, or you could actually pay the worker that escrow money. But in order to pay that escrow, there needs to be some kind of exchange rate between time and money.
No.
How?
Absolutely not.
Even if you don't set it, it's implied. So if, for example, if
hang on. Let me make sure that I'm disagreeing correctly.
Okay, right.
As a worker, I look at something and I go, that's about 60 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I say when the item's in the open state, I'm like, I can do that. It will take me 60 hours. I need, in terms of money, X dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may choose to say, X hours and this much money. I may just say, I can do that for 40 grand. Mm-hmm. It's a market. Other people can come in and say something different.
Yeah.
Eventually, someone's going to put forwards a combination of their reputation, the idea that they have on how to solve the problem, and their skills, and a funder's going to say, or group of funders is going to say, yep, that's good for us. Mm-hmm. We'll escrow the money, you deliver the work, off you go.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep,
and
I agree with all that. Yep.
Both sides set a timeline. Mm-hmm. The funders put a timeline on their escrowed money. The workers need to accept that, if they don't get it done by this time, the escrow is going to roll back and no one gets anything.
Well, they're not guaranteed. You could always re-escrow, but you're not guaranteed. It's not algorithmic.
That's a separate transaction.
Yeah.
So
I think I've spotted where the discrepancy is. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me.
I think the discrepancy is, I'm thinking about the attribution algo that generates the algorithmic cap table.
That's not our business right now. We don't have that answer.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. That's why I found this paragraph difficult to write.
Right.
Yeah.
This is I call it an insight. I don't think it is, but I don't have a better word for it.
Mm-hmm.
In that you can absolutely say you don't have to calculate attribution at the point in time. How can you, when most of the variables you need to do that calculation are non-existent?
Right.
You don't even know if the work is worth something to anyone at all.
Yes.
All you know is that this guy put in money, this guy put in time,
which is the whole problem of startups and share allocations and so on. Exactly what we're fighting against. It's that kind of future allocation of stuff that hasn't happened yet.
If you introduce attribution at the point of negotiation in the market, you just put us right back to the current marketplace. Sure, it'll be more efficient because you can fuck yourself faster, but it's still the same problem. Right. We're saying it's delayed.
I think
the attribution calculation is delayed.
That's exactly it. And I'm thinking about the algorithm around the generation of the algorithmic cap table. And I couldn't come up with a good algorithm.
There's a couple of things that we know we can start with straight off. Okay, number one is we don't fucking know.
Yep.
So probably tomorrow I'm going to put in a request for that because I have thought about how to word. It's absolutely. It's basically the riddle of the dream catcher.
Yeah.
Here's a request. for a thing that will tell you how much you are going to get paid for solving this thing, that everyone else who needs to figure out what they're going to get paid will also use and will pay you something.
Right. And
So
the black and
it's
white
a very
case,
interesting thing to solve.
Yeah, the black and white case is you don't record time at all, but people put in time. A funder puts in funds, and the worker gets the funds, and then the attribution table.
I think you could run it like that, but
That's the black and white. That's the simple case.
I would insist in our pool. I would insist on time being logged, and I would insist on being able to audit those blocks of time at any given point and be like, I doubt that you were spending this time on this thing you said, so let me audit you and show me your screen grab or your whatever during that time, because I think
at least turn up and explain yourself, kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that
now,
actually
the second thing that
sorry, go on.
The second thing that I know about that algorithm is that it cannot be solved permanently. It can only be solved per dispersal event, and it should not, the future solution should not be entirely bound by a previous solution, which means that as we learn more about what fairness actually means, we will modify that algorithm based on some kind of a consensus, and it's going to change from what it was the day we launched. Who knows, right? That's sort of the point, is that we're going to figure this out.
Yeah, precisely. And how to figure that out, as I was saying, I don't know.
Well, it's a great problem for the Dreamcatcher. We can launch with a basic version. I mean, at this stage, making any money would be good, and I'm sure that the funders and the workers would be grateful for anything back at the moment. And we're like, well, this is going to get better. So, you probably want to be in at that super rarefied level where it's just a whisper and you don't even really know, because that's going to pay out big. No matter how that algorithm plays out, the people that put their necks on the line at the start are going to get recognized pretty big for that one, I think.
Right. So let me suggest...
Now, the second...
Sorry, go ahead.
The third, probably final point I have on this is that, absolutely, we don't need to calculate attribution now. And I think that everyone who works in our pool needs to be okay with that, because we're here to solve that and refine that problem, and there's no fucking money coming in the door anyway. And if we're all committing to a unified solution that's applied algorithmically to everyone, that's the closest thing we have to fair. And it sure beats you and I sitting there with a picture of a pie, drawing lines and cuts in it.
And spending all that time and worry and, a possibility of antagonism before you've actually done anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So
right.
It's got faults, sure, but it will be patched over time.
Let me propose a rewrite of this one then.
That sounds so fucking defeated. I think it's completely acceptable to actually state that, there's a request out to solve this problem. It is not solved now. We can at least talk about some of the attributes that algorithm will have without saying what it totally is. We're like, it's...
Right.
It's a thing that we need to solve. Yeah. Right? So there's a lot of things in here that are things that we need to solve. I mean, the whole fucking point is to solve things that need solving. Like, that's what the thing does.
Yeah.
It's its only party trick.
So what we're saying is, there. How's that wording?
That's all right, but we've actually got 3 units. One is the asset. If you wanted to calculate attribution, you would take the asset that was produced, the work that went into it in terms of time, and the money that was paid to that person for that work as a minimum set of variables.
I'm not sure I agree with that. Yes,
Quality,
the asset is part of.
Matters. Quality matters.
Yeah. The asset is the port in which the distribution event comes through, because that asset is being used, but it's not a variable. Is in once it's there, that's the port that the thing comes in. The algorithmic cap table assumes that we're talking about this asset. So it's not, for example, we wouldn't have to log what the asset. You need to log the time and dollars against each asset, but we don't have to change what the asset is each time. So
you don't change what the asset is. It's just saying that when it passes QA, we will feed those 3 variables into the algorithm.
I guess, yes.
Table
okay.
At a minimum.
I'm splitting hairs on this.
There will be others, right? There will be contextual information that will come in as well, like how sure was this thing? How hard was this work? How guaranteed was it? Was revenue looking likely? How long until people thought they were going to get paid? Like, those types of things still come into it as well, like
but
if you took a punt, like if you were starving and you knew that it was 10 years to revenue for a particular task, but you did it anyway, to me that's much more valuable than someone who's like looks at something as like, it's a year away and I ain't starving, I'm gonna do it.
Or necessarily a week away or tomorrow.
Yeah. So but those are all fun things that are to be solved once we have a solution engine.
Yes. Okay. So I've just added the fact that we're recording those 2 units of input against the unit of output that they apply to.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Great.
Yeah. All right. That's better. It's good. So anything else on this? Anything on the actors? The implementation steps are greatly simplified from the previous version.
I think that the templates belong in a dictionary, not in the system itself.
But the templates are an asset. So you could write a template that many pools call down on. Yeah, it's an asset, it's an output, I think. Because we could generate a template now that is popular with many other pools 10 years from now.
If we were to deliver this system as a fresh instance, we would deliver it with a stripped down version of the dictionary that only had the terms in it that needed to be known for the operation of that instance. In there, I imagine, would be the templates.
No, I quite strongly disagree with that. Perhaps the fact of a template needs to be in there, but when we get around to doing the inheritance thing, it needs to be the most wide and open template you've ever seen, so that we're not dictating. So, for example, our template at the moment is the must, could, should. Maybe someone says that's bollocks, I should do it another way.
That's outside of our purview. We are trying to select the template that works for us.
Right. So that's
version.
Yeah. By us, what we're talking. I'm going to change my hats now. We're talking about the pool. Everything in the dictionary is. Sorry, guys. That's just the rules of the game. That's how it is.
Right. The dictionary is more general, whereas the template is more specific to us.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, can we move it to app data, the app data folder? Just anywhere that isn't technically a request. It's a template for a request.
Yeah. I was thinking of just making another folder with outputs or assets. That didn't particularly sit nicely with me, because some of the assets might be existing. For example, part of
Well,
this is going to be changing
I
the
think
dictionary, but
the asset can be sprinkled about the place.
exactly, it can be anywhere. Exactly.
Mm.
Or maybe we create a DC pool with our templates and our guidance on QA, because that really only applies to us. But your point on what's in the dictionary, I think we do put in the dictionary the fact that there is, a template that the QA needs to apply.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that. I just request the template needs to be somewhere not in the request folder.
Yeah.
Do we agree on that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It was never part of the request. It seemed weird when I was looking at it. Okay. Anything else in this doc?
When you talk about the integration tests, you have not stipulated which actor is taking part in which actions.
I've stipulated the actions, but not the actor. You're quite right.
So what I think, as a sequence or a script for me to run through, I would expect you to declare actor and then each action, and then if you're going to switch actors, then switch again, and probably at the top, if there were going to be multiple instances of a particular actor, like worker A, worker B, I would expect that to be declared as the scene setting for the integration test. Like there are two workers, there is one QA operating on this pool.
Yes, you're right. And there's also something else on reflection that I've missed, which is what the expected action is, because an integration test needs an expected action. Sorry, expected state.
Because you're like, it worked.
It's like, submit a request. Hey, I've just thrown it out the window. There you go, I've submitted it. So what's the state that we're testing against? So that was a bit of an embarrassing oversight there. Okay, yeah, I'll rewrite those. That should be easy enough. Okay.
When you detail, I think the implementation steps are too detailed.
Oh God, I think that greatly cut down. I was thinking, shit, there's not much really to go in here at all. But yeah, okay. So, what would you propose?
Well, the thing is, they're not really you've laid out a series of linear steps, but really the request asks for several loops. Where is the loop in your implementation?
It is there. So the implementation steps are really there to meet the integration tests, right?
Well, the implementation steps to me would be a description of how you're going to approach solving this problem. I don't know how you can write the guidance section in market.md when you don't know what it is yet. Why is that step one?
Because
is that an unfair thing to say?
Yeah. Come on, man. It's not. We've got turtles all the way down. That was just my earthing step because, I guess
I think I'm trying to say that it's too detailed because it's too specific. And I wouldn't need to see all of that if I were right. So it's too specific, and you can't meet those steps anyway because they don't make logical sense.
Well, I guess the minimum possible implementation steps is do stuff, check against integration tests, fix failures, loop until we're done. That's about as simple as it gets. Now,
I think what an appropriate approach for us is to attempt to first pass at doing the dictionary definitions and the process. Keeping in mind too that the actors and actions thing here is speculative as well. It may not turn out to be that way.
Yep.
And then I would say that once we've reached agreement between the two of us on a loose system that works with all our concepts defined, then I would say that we would want to do at least one app that we each care about. I would say that you would do the Mayday app, because I think that's your pet right now.
It is.
I would do the IPFS rewrite, because that's what I'm working on right now. I think that's a good spread between module and user-facing application. So we get a good sort of blend of tasks. And then I would say that we attempt to run the process on those items. So we're running the process on itself and one other app that we're both a specialist in.
Yeah. I agree with that. The only thing I'd add to that is because we're dealing with apps, we've got the two hats on thing again. And what we want to do is fire trace a bullet through this process on something that's trivial, but not so trivial that it doesn't actually touch the sides. But something that we're not going to be looking at the detail of the app.
Okay, do you want to do the trivial thing first then instead of the deeper? Yeah, okay. And then one of the latest steps I was hoping for was we just start entering a whole bunch of dust. And then we just see how that works. And I wanted to try and get the process tamed, or the format tamed, so that when all the dust comes in, it's not some mind-numbing task to sit there and make sure it all matches format because we changed it.
Well, dust is no format. It's just dust. We only have to worry about...
It will have some format because all dust is aspiring to be in a pool. And so some of them will have some format.
It's freeform though. So again,
it doesn't have to have a format, but
for scientists' sake, we should
probably have format.
Yeah, because it's our dust. Yeah, yeah, just to keep ourselves sane. Okay, yeah, all right. I'll rewrite that. I think in essence, what you're saying is very similar to this, but I'll give another shot of this today on this recording. But I think it's basically similar. I think I've probably been a bit free and loose with the, tiger stew. First catch your tiger, second get the hot water on. It's like, catching a tiger.
Okay, so can we move on to...
Yes, and unless there's... If that's everything on I11, I'll have another version out today. Can I just go get a glass of water? I'm feeling quite parched.
Sure, man.
And then over to your part. Right, be right back. Right, what you got?
What I have is, if you go to the website and then under any phase go to R6 into block.
Okay, 56. NFAs R6 interblock. Okay, in there. Yep.
Yep. Down the very bottom, you should see a heading that says required object operations.
Oh. Oh, quite like these. All right. Love diagrams of this sort. And talk me through it then.
What I've been trying to grasp at is a new way to describe the functionality of interblock as a collection of these diagrams that describe all of the chain interactions that we want to see occurring in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so
what's the index? Or not the index. What's the kind of symbology here? So I see main child.
Main is like the first chain,
mm-hmm.
or
so that's a reference.
Any
that's the
given
baseline.
chain.
Yeah,
a base chain.
Yep.
Then making just one block at all, like that's quite an achievement.
And blocks are the blue circles, the different colored circles, but those are blocks, are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then making the next block is like I've got a block, and now I make the next block is that's a testable operational thing. Like that's the number of times I've built the system. That's definitely a milestone. That one.
Mm-hmm.
And then making a child is the next op.
Mm-hmm.
Making the child talk back. The child reply.
What's the circle? The on-child reply, the rightmost blue circle.
Well, the way I'm trying to pitch the diagrams is that the curved line coming from in child reply, the curved line coming from main to child represents a message.
Mm-hmm.
And at the right-hand side of child reply, the curved line going back to main represents a message going back.
Right. So the fact that it's hollowed out, as it were, that denotes a merge back from child, does it?
A message received. No, it's just a message received.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. And then the whatever work has been done by child is now incorporated. Whatever the contents, the payload of that message is now on main. It doesn't matter what the intermediate steps are. Yeah. What's the square box?
The square box was meant to be just something else happened. So delayed reply is a child was born and then it did something else, or it received a message and then it did something else, and then it replied back to the parent. It didn't reply straight away.
So promise-like?
That is promises. That is 100% promises.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Delete should be self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Delete child as well.
Let me trace this through. So block, child is born, comes back with a response. That response is dealt with by main. Next block. What's the on child? The circle just to the left of the X. What's that denote?
That's a message received from parent.
Right. Okay. So if it's a hollowed out circle, then that is you're dealing with a response of some sort.
A message has been received. So a message got sent to you, and now you received it.
Right. So
it could have been a reply. It could have been a reply, or it could have been an original action.
What do you mean by original action? Sorry.
Well, an unsolicited action is one that gets made without you doing anything and is sent to you.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. So, sorry, you said original, but unsolicited. Is that right?
Unsolicited, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so block, child does stuff, messages back, main receives a message, block messages the child to delete itself, and then child message back saying, "I am now deleted."
Why don't you just kill yourself?
Yeah,
Um,
this is really clear. I get this. There's no confounders here. The only thing I would suggest is you've got the I don't know if it's a hash or a block ID or whatever. Those don't add to the diagram because there's, as far as I can see, there's no information I can get from, 2OC3898B. It doesn't add anything.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, but other than that, I think it's really clear.
Right.
I just get it. It's really nice.
The point I want to make here, first of all, I think that interblock itself can be described not just with these diagrams, but also by contrasting how each one of these diagrams relates to the fundamental operations of object-oriented programming, namely making a new object, deleting an object, sending a message to another object.
By analogy or by parity of operation?
Parity of operation.
Right. Okay.
And then deeper than that, all right, so that gets you so far. But then object-oriented falls apart when you start dealing with persistence, because it sort of gets blurry when you deal with persistence of objects and transmission, heaven forbid, of objects, or like remote procedure calls from one object to another one on a foreign system.
Right.
Whereas our model stays coherent. It uses the same language, the same diagrams to call. So we can take traditional object-oriented and say, these are the primitive operations of object-oriented programming. This is how they relate to interblock blockchains. But then further, we can say, then there's persistence. This is how it relates to interblock blockchains. This is transmission, relates to interblock blockchains. So we can basically say how we solve a lot of the technical stack of traditional computing in this blockchain form.
Right. Like, because you're looking at it at an extracted layer where you really don't care where these things happening.
The layer, our layer stays the same, whereas the object-oriented layer has to diverge into something different.
Right.
Particularly when you get into things like multi-threading. Yeah. Multi-threading using these diagrams, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine it, is just a fan out. Whereas in object-oriented, you're like, right, like it's sort of not, it's not part of the paradigm. It's
nasty. Yeah.
So Rex and I had a pretty good chat in the Code Topics channel today about that, and the thing I've been really trying to capture is that in the Dreamcatcher, we are trying to formalize or manage within our framework the entire application lifecycle, not just from writing code to publishing updates to updating our framework to scaling to persistence and all those things, but we're trying to tackle everything, such as solution generation, problem discovery, problem broadcasting,
recording of utility, and so on.
Yeah. Attribution. All those things are actually part of the software development lifecycle. And what Rex helped me see today in our discussion is that I think that if I take these diagrams, the aspects of the Dreamcatcher that cover the really thorny problems of finance, investment, return on investment, dispersal, can be turned into one of these diagrams, because in our system, our solution to those problems is at the object level. Every single object in our system.
Absolutely. If I've understood, sorry to cut you off, but just to, these diagrams are massively clear to me. So just reflecting back what you just said, sorry to cut you off, but just want to see if I've got it before you give me the answer. If we were to look at delayed reply as an investment model, you've got kind of request. You've got the request idea lock. The child is the work. Workers go off, do stuff. Box, delayed promise, and some kind of result will come back on there. So the investment model is entirely analogous to what we've got here, which is a time series from left to right, which incorporates state changes, effectively as a state changes, but encapsulates only that area of the whole chain space that you're interested in. And so you're interested in an investment and a finance investment, then a delayed reply is exactly that. And your message back is like, oh, we've spent all your money, sorry, nothing worked. Or we've spent all your money and you've now got an asset, but that's a reply back to the main, for example. So I've got that right, where you're going down on that?
You have that different to what I was thinking. I don't know enough about it to say right or wrong. I don't know if either of us are right.
Okay. What was your thinking then? It's quite interesting, actually.
I think what you're talking about is that you can express the fundamental operations of the Dreamcatcher device in these diagrams.
Yeah, correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I hadn't intended that with these diagrams, but I can absolutely see that you can do that, and I imagine that look pretty straightforward, actually. So you'd end up with basically a series of types of operation that can occur between actors represented by chains.
Yep.
And when you built up that library of operations, you could say, this is everything you can do in the Dreamcatcher. Here's how the chains look. And then we can sort of tick off each one as we do progress on it. Right? Yeah. That's what you're getting at?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, I might give this a go just to see it.
That might actually be a lot simpler than having a state chart and then trying to figure out.
So I'm thinking, I've been struggling with the whole embedded hierarchical requests. So I have an idea, but I have a request for something that I need in order to solve that idea for this original request. Would be, I think,
right.
Really
Whereas
quite
this,
clear.
This actually solves that, because you can be like, well, this is how a hierarchical request of level 1 looks like, and therefore you can reuse this component to do arbitrarily deep nesting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's an added bonus then.
Yeah.
So we can describe the Dreamcatcher in this form, interblock in this form, and then compare that to traditional object-oriented behaviors, and then you could probably do a comparison for the Dreamcatcher components to traditional fundraising operations.
Right. And a lot easier than I haven't done it yet. My gut says it's going to be a simpler diagram than a state chart.
Honestly, yeah, the fact that we haven't really done a state diagram, and yet when we look at these diagrams, it seems like straight away we're like, oh yeah, that's easy. Whereas the state chart, we're like, ooh.
Exactly. Well, I came up with this block, this code. I've never seen this before, and I think I had one or two questions, and I get it. So that's got to say something about the clarity of the diagramming.
Great. Still not what I was really trying to get at, though. Mm-hmm. The act of attribution cannot be whittled down to any finer an atom than a single block in our system. where that single block belongs to some serverless object.
Right, because that's our plank length. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Moreover, we do not also deal in units any bigger than that fundamental unit when it comes to attribution. When we calculate attribution, we calculate it based on three things whenever any block is made. The first is attribution to the code that was used to produce this block, which includes the code of Interblock itself and the Dreamcatcher and whatever other libraries all the way back to the medieval ages.
Yep.
The second of three is the attribution to the resources used to execute this block, such as electricity, radio transmissions, other types of infrastructure
block producers
running this curriculum.
Yeah.
So we attribute to that. And the third is one that I'm a little less confident in capturing, but the third is what the symbol we record represents, i.e. if my object is modeling a cow, maybe there is some attribution due there. Like, that's outside of the system, that's symbolic attribution where we're sort of being used as an accounting system. But my point is that these objects represent things in the real world. Those real world things may be due some attribution of a different kind as well. It may not be just the code.
By that, do you mean the earthing event that we were talking about it's still in the dictionary with ghosts, but obviously we need to go through and check that. But it's the earthing event to real world.
Yeah, it's like what real world thing does this thing represent? Because, I'll have a blockchain object that represents me. And now, there's basically the code that was used to make the next block, the resources that were used to make the next block, and then thirdly is this big fuzzy area of the actual real world things that this object represents.
Okay, I mean this might be too simplistic, but this is just a first blush answer to that question. So is the earthing event is the point where it's outside of chain space?
I'm sorry to be rude.
Not at all.
I don't need an answer to that problem yet.
Okay.
This is not the problem I have.
I have a in my head a clear response. It seems simpler than your.
Yeah, great.
Okay,
well,
yeah.
If you can answer it, great. I'm out of time.
Oh, you're out of time. All right. Okay.
Well, I gotta go in 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Well, let's see. The idea is simple enough. I should be able to do it in 3. So
but there's still not enough time. I still haven't got to the main point of what I was trying to pitch here.
All right. Okay. Well, why not just say shut the fuck up, man? Go on. All right. I'm shutting up. Right. Okay. Go for it.
You can, great, solve that problem, but that's not my problem.
Just tell me to shut the fuck up. Right. Okay. Go for it.
Okay. So the act of attribution and the dispersal events of that, the incentivization of further modifications to the code and the infrastructure, that too can be drawn in one of these diagrams, with the purpose being that we can. The diagrams you're talking about for describing the Dreamcatcher are multi-object. They're still conventional operations of like, how do we go about doing a thing? In our system, I say that it is a Dreamcatcher object if it includes within it intrinsically this automatic attribution system that serves also as an incentive mechanism for its own upkeep and improvement.
Right.
Okay. This fundamental financial mechanic can be described in one of these diagrams in such a way that without all the mechanism of how does the Dreamcatcher do its construction work, concerning ourselves solely with, as a consumer of Dreamcatcher objects, how does a Dreamcatcher object manage its whole life cycle? How does it manage its connection to a marketplace for improvement, for incentive dispersal?
That's not trivial.
Yeah, you get what I mean? Like, there's a way that we can actually describe using just an atom by saying we define an atom as a Dreamcatcher object that has within it this intrinsic attribution mechanism. Therefore, we can define the economics of the Dreamcatcher, the incentives, the different forces on it by saying that any conventional object-oriented object has these forces on it. It has financial return demands. It has labor market demands. It has copyright issues. It has all these. Whenever you make an object in conventional land, there's a bunch of shit that people are too scared to even talk about, which is what is the economic capitalist machine that made that object? We're saying that we capture that whole machine inside every single one of our objects, and this is how it interacts with the machinery that it lives within to perpetuate itself. Whereas a programming object has a normal conventional programming object has these other failures that cause it to perpetuate downwards, whereas ours perpetuate to higher order. Do you get roughly what I'm sniffing in the air here?
That's a fucking gnarly one. Because
there's an atomic definition of Dreamcatcher economics in here somewhere.
The problem we're going to have to address is it's easy enough to say block, promise, return, and so on, because even though the box, it may come back or may not come back ever, or may come back saying failed or whatever, there is a certainty of operational state changes. But the problem with incentives is there's no certainty of operational state change. So take voting.
I think that's fine. That's fine for the diagrams, and sort of the rough and ready versions I got in my head are like, you got object here, and then you've got like each object has like emits little like